Hello again, YouTubers. Welcome back to the Board Game Captain. I'm the Board Game Captain.
I'm Lynn.
I'm Alex.
And welcome to the second episode of Game Mechanics 101, the show where we will run through either a game mechanic or a play style, tell you about its history, how it's evolved to today, if we think it's still a good mechanic and there's room for it to improve in the future, where it's going in the future, and if it's not a very good mechanic, maybe how to revitalize it. So today on Game Mechanics 101, we're going to be discussing Roll and Move, which is why we have quite a few older games out here. And that's because Roll and Move is a mechanic that you don't see a whole lot of in modern gaming. It was one of the biggest mechanics for most of the history of gaming. I did a little bit of research on Roll and Move, and now the oldest known Roll and Move game happens to also be the oldest known board game. And that is Senet. Now, Senet dates all the way back to at least 3100 BCE. That's old. That is really, we're talking over 5,000 years old now. And
I did research too, and I found that the Royal Game of Ur dated to 3000 BCE as the oldest. I didn't find Senet as the oldest.
Well, I have found that as well. Now Senet goes to 3100. Royal Game of Ur may go back as far as 3000 based on some claims, but they know for a fact it goes back to at least 2600 BCE. But even on the oldest claims of the Royal Game of Ur, it's still around 900 years younger, which is not a huge amount in the grand scheme of things, but still about 900 years younger than Senet, which makes it the second oldest game, and in my opinion, a superior game to Senet. Which is why I have it out here in front of me as well.
Well, do we even have a Senet?
We don't have a copy of Senet right now. No. Of that family, which also in the same family includes backgammon, Ur is my favorite. Now, the thing about Roll and Move is that it was one of the biggest mechanics used in board games.
Yeah, like forever.
Forever, until modern games, basically.
Literally forever.
Yeah,
I have, because Roll and Move, you generally use dice to roll. And I found a hilarious quote by this guy his name is Martin Dews.
Okay.
And he is quoted as saying, "Dice are the devil's spotted eggs, which he has lain in a great number of homes."
Nice.
Who was this person?
He was just a writer from like the 1600s.
Okay, just because of the randomness of them?
I guess he was.
Or maybe it was a gambling
I guess
thing.
he wasn't a fan of dice games, gambling.
It might have been a gambling thing.
Yeah.
There was a time when religious people were quite anti-gambling. It could have been a gambling thing.
I didn't realize the devil laid eggs.
or that they were square.
No wonder he's so pissed off.
I think I'd be angry too.
Quite the cluck when that comes out.
Yeah, oh God. So, all right. So, Alex, let's go to you. Alex, what does Roll and Move mean to you? How would you define Roll and Move?
Something done by 5-year-olds.
No, but really, the mechanic. How would you define the mechanic?
The quote is close. It's dice is usually what you use to roll. That dictates how you move. So you are basically 100% chance.
Yes.
And you play your game based on what the dice tell you, and then that's the extent of the thought involved.
Roll the dice, find a random number, move.
Right. So we're talking about pure roll and move games, obviously, but
No, it's used as a smaller mechanic in many other games.
right, and fairly well. I would say for the most part, as I see,
I'm going to disagree with you completely on that.
Well, for what it is, they did it fairly well. But if you are a pure roll and move game, you're okay. We'll get into that.
Lynn picked a very pure roll and move game.
Yes.
Which is one that is also...
Yeah, Snakes and Ladders.
This is hundreds and hundreds of years old. This is another one, I think it's around 800 years old. Dates back to...
I can actually look it up because I do believe it's in this
It
book.
is in here. It dates back...
I have the Book of Games.
It is a great book. Now, Snakes and Ladders goes all the way back hundreds and hundreds of years ago to India. It was originally created as a way to teach children about the concept of karma and reincarnation in Hinduism. So the idea is supposed to be that if you land on a ladder, that's a good deed and you go up.
Right.
You land on a snake, that's a bad deed and you go down.
Well, it has a really cool picture of the oldest Snakes and Ladders board ever found.
Cool.
And when does that date to?
It doesn't say on the overview page.
Take a look. I'm pretty sure there was a in there it talked about how old it was.
2800 BCE.
Ooh, we're knocking on Royal Ur territory.
All right, so that's well, hold on, no, it says
Makes fascinating video, by the way.
it is a very old game. It definitely goes back a very long time. This is now the thing about Snakes and Ladders though. Snakes and Ladders is a very pure roll and move. You literally all you do in the game is you roll the dice and you move. Mm-hmm. The problem with Snakes and Ladders is the game plays itself. There's no choices to be made.
Right.
At least with the other race games of the old classic roll and move variety, like the Royal Game of Ur, Backgammon, and Senate. With these, there's a couple of things that make it better used, in my opinion. So one thing that makes this so much better used is multiple pieces. Mm-hmm. So if you have multiple pieces and you roll, then you choose which one of the pieces is going to move. Am I going to move this piece and have it land on the flower space, which means I get a free extra roll? Or I can move this piece and land on my opponent's space and bump him off the board and make him start again. Right. And that kind of decision making makes the game much more interesting. And in my opinion, race games are where roll and move was done best.
Like backgammon.
Like backgammon or the Royal Game of Ur.
Gotcha. Right.
These are where I think it was, in my opinion, I think Royal Game of Ur holds up. Other people like backgammon better, but I like Royal Game of Ur better than backgammon. But in both cases, there's still some strategy there, and I think they hold up to today.
I know people who play backgammon today religiously.
Yes.
It's like the game they play when they get together with their family. They play it at the bar. They play it at work. Like, backgammon is a very important game to some people. So that's what I was saying. There is roll and move still exists.
Yes.
And still
in classic form.
It still serves a purpose in games, right?
But now, and this is interesting. So Lynn brought out a game that was pure roll and move. Literally, roll the dice, move. Mm-hmm. I brought out one of those race games, some of which have survived, like Royal Game of Ur and Backgammon, where people still play them competitively. Mm-hmm. And you brought out part of the weird thing that happened it kind of was something that was going on from around the 20th century, the early 20th century, up through the late 20th century, where people were taking the roll and move mechanic, which previously you had just really seen in a lot of race games throughout time, which were a very popular type of game. Race games were very popular, and they put them in games that I don't think they ever should have been put in. Like Monopoly.
Like that one, it's just like you just go round and round. It doesn't matter if you're before someone or after someone. All that matters is that you don't land on certain spaces, or that you do land on other spaces.
But that it adds in a ridiculous amount of randomness to what otherwise would be a more tactical game.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, that randomness kind of ruins Monopoly. And again, you see that in other classic games from this era too.
Game of Life.
Well, Game of Life is still kind of like a race game, but I was going to say things like Clue. Like, why is there roll and move in Clue? Mm-hmm. It was total. You should just go from room to room. You should be like, I want to guess on the next thing in the library. I'm going to go to the library. You shouldn't be like, oh, I rolled a 1 again. Oh, I rolled a 1 again. God, it's going to take me 10 years to get to the library. It's stupid. They never should have had roll and move in Clue. Yeah. And there was this weird thing that happened in the 20th century where people were like, oh, we're making a board game. Got to have roll and move in there.
Well, I think it was yeah. Well, I think you just hit on it. It was a intellectual laziness. The only way to keep a game moving forward was to roll dice and move spaces on a board, and then it didn't matter what else you put in the game. Money, properties, the strategy that is involved in how you buy and sell and trading and all the different parts of it are completely overshadowed by the rolling and the moving.
Yeah,
because all of your strategy can go completely out the window because of a dice roll.
Well, I think it's because, rolling dice is fun, so they just figure they'll stick it in there.
When you're gambling.
The thing is, in a game that should be more strategic or deductive, like Clue is. Clue is a deduction game.
Right.
That roll and move feels out of place. Mm-hmm. Especially, maybe it didn't feel that out of place to people back then because all the games had it.
Right.
But nowadays, even back then, though, there was no roll and move in Stratego. You just moved.
Like you said, it was a 20th century thing, and it was abused. They took it too far and put it in too many things, and it's gone away, and it's a good thing.
No, okay. Now that hits on a big part of how most gamers feel about roll and move, is that it's gone away, and it's a good thing that it's gone away. So let's discuss. Do you think this game mechanic, roll and move, can be used in the future, and how would you revitalize it?
I think it can be used in the future, but it has to be used sparingly.
So how would you use it?
I would use it if you have So, like I said, high strategy is nice, but if you want to inject a bit of chaos into an intellectual game, it makes sense. You know, a kind of a way to put a check on just pure strategy, put some luck in there, change the way things go. And if you're using it to, like I said, it's the way it could be used. I'm not sure it should be.
I'm going to go 180 degrees to the opposite of what you're saying, right?
That's the only thing I can think of as a way.
I wouldn't want to put, but the thing is, in a pure strategy game, I don't want to inject that luck. So that's why I'm going the opposite direction from you on that. I don't agree with that at all. That's kind of like all the 20th century games that I hate.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a good way to do it. I'm saying it's good. If you're going to build a board game in the future that is going to use roll and move, it has to be a part of it that adds something to the gameplay. You can't just have roll and move with all these things that happen because you've rolled and or moved.
So it shouldn't be so important like it's in Monopoly. Like, oh, I rolled and now I land on the hotel. Like, that shouldn't happen. Like, oh god, I'm bankrupt because I landed on something.
Right. The reason this is such a universally hated game nowadays by gamers is that it takes roll and move and does exactly what you shouldn't do with it, which is make it the point of the game.
Right.
So, okay. But I think you can do it in a way that would. I don't know how to. I'm not a game designer, but I'm sure there are ways that it could be used more effectively.
Okay.
And it can be a component of future games, but never again in the way it was done through all those games.
So things like Monopoly and Club.
Right. Like it's gone, and it's good that it's gone and being used that way.
So what do you think, Lynn? Can it be used in the future? How would you use it?
I think I don't know. We don't actually own that many roll and move games.
Because they're mostly older games that are really feeling their age at this point.
I don't know. I mean, I like rolling dice, but then there are games that let you roll a lot of dice that aren't roll and move now, and I would rather play those.
Like Press Your Luck dice games?
Mm-hmm. Either that or even, like games like Warriors, where the dice are like your
warriors,
your monsters, and you roll them to see what kind of monster you can use to attack. You know, and you're rolling every turn, which is still fun, but it's not. And I mean, I guess that's still pretty much 100% random, but it doesn't seem like the game beats you up for rolling bad. I don't know.
Okay, now I'm gonna say that my only variety of roll and move games that I still like are games like the Royal Game of Ur, which are those everybody has multiple pieces and they are multi-piece roll and move racing games. So backgammon to a lesser extent, but for me Royal Game of Ur is my favorite of these. Now there's a couple things that Royal Game of Ur does really right in this. One is that you roll multiple dice, and each of the dice is really, they're four-sided dice, but it's really just a 0 or a 1. They're almost binary. You got 2 zeros and 2 ones. And because of that, it's very easy to figure out the average roll you're going to get, and you can plan for that. And there is some strategy to it. And then when you get your roll, you pick which piece it is going to move, so there's strategy to be done there. So what I'm going to say is, I think if we saw a revitalization...
Easy for you to say.
I know, right? A revitalization of race games in the future... I would like to see, and this is my opinion, this is what I think could be done really well with roll and move, a press your luck dice roll and move racing game. So imagine this. You've got dice, you get a certain number of re-rolls, you pick which ones to re-roll, so you're rolling them and you're pressing your luck, looking for the right combination of numbers, and then you stop, and you go, boom, I got it, I hit you, you go back to the beginning. I think that would be a good way to do it. I think that would be an interesting new take on games like Royal Game of Ur with the more modern mechanic of press your luck added in as well. Sure. And it would give you more control over it. Because again, you're pressing your luck and you're playing the odds. I think that would be, in my opinion, the best way to revitalize roll and move is by combining it with another dice mechanic like press your luck.
Okay.
So there you have it. That is everything we have to talk about, I think. Unless, did you guys have anything else to add? Nope.
No.
So that's everything we have to talk about when it comes to roll and move. So there you go. What do you think? Do you think we got anything wrong? Did you want to interject anything? What is your favorite roll and move game? Or if you don't like any, tell us about why you hate roll and move so much. Don't worry, we probably agree with you. But that's everything that we have to talk about when it comes to roll and move. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, Share it on all forms of social media. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Kaptain. That's Captain spelt with a K on YouTube. And until next time, game on.